Hey yogis! So my name is Colleen, and in this video we're going to be going over how Kundalini Yoga is different from other styles of yoga. So if you're watching this, you might be a yogi and you can probably pop into a yin class, to a vinyasa class, to a power class, and you can get your groove on pretty easily. It's pretty easy to adapt once you have been in the yoga world for a little bit. But Kundalini Yoga is totally different. Actually, I had 3 yoga trainings and other yoga styles, and when I took my Kundalini Yoga teacher training, I was like, almost none of this applies. It's crazy that it's a very different sector. So what are we doing in Kundalini Yoga? I think that's a big question. People don't really even know when they get started with Kundalini Yoga. So what we're doing is there's two things. So we're starting to activate this energy that's at the base of our spine. And when we start to move more energy through the body, we're starting to release things and we're starting to reprogram the subconscious mind. This Kundalini energy is like a fiery energy that moves through the body. And as it starts to move through the body, it starts to burn out these things. It starts to burn out old habits. It starts to burn out old traumas. It starts to burn out a lot of pain that we've been carrying. So that's totally different than just going to a, vinyasa class, moving your body, getting your muscles on. This is a totally different intention that we're coming to this practice with. And so another way that this is different is when you go to a Kundalini class, you are doing a Kriya. And a Kriya is a cleansing technique for the body. And so there's all kinds of different cleansing techniques you can do. There can be some for more psychic development. There can be some for opening the heart chakra. There's a saying in Kundalini Yoga that there's a Kriya for that, because there are so many systems that have already been created to get you a different result. And I think that's one thing that's super cool about this practice, is that there's so many, it's like a little recipe that you have to work through anything that you're really needing support on. There's a huge recipe book. There's thousands of Kriyas that you can do to really make yourself feel different, to get energy to move differently, and to get a different result in your body. And instead of having like a one long class, like a 90-minute nice flow, or a 60-minute power class, in Kundalini Yoga, it's a little bit more like a HIIT class where you're doing short intervals of different things. And so that whatever the Kriya technique, the cleansing technique calls for, you'll be doing short intervals of different things. And also, we are working with different components. It's a much more holistic way to practice yoga. Although original yoga, it does have all of these components. I think in the Western world, we get really hyper focused on the physicality of yoga that we don't see that there's so much depth and there's so much vastness to it. So in Kundalini Yoga, we are working with sound, we are working with mantra. So there's a lot of gong playing and there's a lot of mantra, because mantra is a vibrational frequency we are trying to run through our bodies. We're working with the pranayama, the breath. We're working with the mind. There's a lot more meditation in Kundalini Yoga. And then we're also doing some movements, but it's not as, the movements are different than they are in other yoga formats. So if you would like to learn more about Kundalini Yoga and really dive into all of these different components, I have broken down all of the things that you need to know in my Kundalini Yoga course. We go into the most common mantras, the most common pranayamas, the most common meditations, and I give you some options for daily practices as well. But I really want to break down all the specifics that you don't get when you just show up to a normal Kundalini Yoga class. We're going to go in depth, so you're going to feel really confident and really safe practicing Kundalini after you finish this course. And one thing that I love the most about this practice is that it works so quickly. Like, it's actually almost scary how quickly it works. Like, I spent 10 years in other yoga styles, other yoga lineages before, and in the 3 years I've been really practicing Kundalini, I have had more change than in those 10 years combined. Like, there's been so much more transformation in the way that I speak and the way that I carry myself, in the vibrancy that I have, in the clarity that I have, in the intuitive skills that I have. It has just been off the charts, where I feel like I stopped doing these other yoga practices because there was just something I wasn't getting out of them that I was really wanting. And then I found all of that transformation when I came to Kundalini Yoga. And I think one last thing I want to say about this style of yoga is that it really brings out your fierceness, it brings out your grit, it brings out your discipline, because the practice is challenging, and it's not necessarily as physically challenging. It can be really mentally challenging to start to navigate these different things about yourself. You're really going to have to bring some discipline and bring some grit into this practice. But when we're doing it on our mat and we're doing it in our practice, then we start to use that grit in other areas of our life. Then it gets easier to flex those muscles, because essentially those qualities are just like muscles. So once we start to build them, we start to take them into other areas of our life, and our other life becomes more enriched from all of the discipline that we can now carry, that we can now hold ourselves to. And you can use that into your businesses, you can use it into your family life, you can use it into your personal projects. It really helps it's a really holistic thing that once these small things start changing in your practice, they're going to start to all change in your life as well. So those are some specific ways of how Kundalini Yoga is different than other yoga practices. I recommend trying it out and seeing for yourself, what do you find to be different. There's obviously a whole list that we could go on of how things feel different or look different, but these are some big ones that I noticed that I really feel make it unique and in its own. So thank you for sharing this time with me, and I'll see you next time.